This is a Flying Cow production.
Book 1, Water. Book 2, Earth. Book 3, Fire. Long ago, Nickelodeon introduced a series called Avatar: The Last Airbender. It combined great anime-style animation, strong storytelling, heart, and humor. It was great, and everyone that saw it loved it. Until one day, a terrible movie came out which everyone hated. But my co-host Lauren Collins knows none of this because he's never seen the show. And that's why we are watching every episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender, because I believe this could be Lauren's new favorite show. Or at least top 20. Well, hello and welcome back to Comets and Cabbages, the Avatar: The Last Airbender podcast here on the Flying Cow. I, of course, am your host, Clay Johnson, the Flying Cow himself, and I am currently trying to trim down my vast ocean.
Well, my name's Amanda, and I would love to have a pet saber-toothed moose lion cub.
And I'm Lauren, and I'm not about to make any bargains where I become a vegan.
Good one.
All right. Yes, we are here today talking about another episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender. We are, like I said, still going through season number 2, book 2, however you prefer to talk about it. I realize now I don't really have anything extra to talk about here. And I was just about to jump into the episode. The last one we talked about like so much crazy stuff. I already told you guys my story about needing to pee. I will say I am on my 4th cup. Second of these, but out of my 8 cups of water, I'm currently in the middle of my 4th.
Nice, and it's only 1:30, so.
Yeah, well, and honestly, yesterday I got it done before dinner. Like it really didn't. I also wasn't doing a whole lot yesterday. But so far I haven't had like tons of urges to go yet. Hopefully it'll kind of curtail off a little bit. Yeah, this is what the podcast has become. Me talking about my urine, apparently.
It's a different kind of water bending is what it is.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Go. Yeah, I've always said I saw myself as a waterbender.
Yeah.
I will say, now I don't know that I have really made a whole lot of habit of like dissecting the color of my urine, but it was clear really early on. Like, I guess just drinking almost nothing but water in a day just clears it up pretty fast.
Yeah. It's just drinking that amount of water will do it.
Yeah. I was, I would have expected like maybe after, the second or third time that I went, but no, first time I was like, wow, look at that.
Yeah.
Guess this is good for me. But yeah, I think we can dispense with the urine talk and
move on to number 2. I'm sorry.
Let's not.
Yeah, no, I haven't been.
Well, I'm in topic number 2. Where did y'all's minds go?
I think the same place everyone else is.
I mean, if you really want to discuss my IBS, we can, but
No, honestly, I will say I've not been making detailed notes about, and yeah, I'm good. I don't need to delve into that topic. But we can go ahead and delve into the topic that we are here to discuss, which is episode 9 of book 2, Bitter Work, which was directed by Ethan Spalding, written by Aaron Ehasz, and it debuted June 2nd, 2006. Excuse me. The basic idea of this episode is both Aang and Zuko start new training. Obviously, Aang, after getting his earthbending master and then making her sleep deprived, finally is starting learning earthbending. And Zuko talks to Uncle Iroh about new training so that he can confront Azula because she's pretty powerful. But yeah,
Do
that
y'all know where the title of this episode comes from?
bitter work. It sounds familiar,
They
but
don't say it in the episode.
sure. I mean, is it a reference to something?
It is.
Okay.
According to the Avatar wiki page, back in the episode "The Avatar and the Fire Lord," which I don't know which one that was. Avatar Roku refers to mastering all the elements specifically.
Oh, so that's one that hasn't happened yet.
I was about to say, I don't think that episode has happened yet.
Oh, maybe that's
in
why.
book 3.
Well,
Yeah.
apparently this is a reference forward. No, it makes some mention about how Roku refers to, yeah, you're right. That is next season. Roku refers to his training in the element opposite his own as bitter work. So,
okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they made that correlation, afterwards.
So it's not a callback then, yeah.
No, it's
the episode is the next episode's the callback. Or the next season episode is the callback.
Back to this title.
It's a foreshadowing, if you will.
There we go.
A little bit.
That's the word.
Yeah. But in this, like I said, it's both of our our protagonist lead and our antagonist lead are learning different skills. But the episode starts off obviously with Aang. Aang is very excited to finally be learning earthbending, and I will say there's a little bit of issue. I mean, not really problem or anything, but he quickly refers to Toph as Sifu Toph, which is a term for teacher, and Katara is just like, you never called me Sifu Katara. What's going on here? I will say, I do wonder why all of a sudden Aang decides to bust out this term for Toph when he has, been, working with Katara for much longer. Of course, maybe that's probably where it comes from, is that, he and Katara were friends long before she started teaching him waterbending. Whereas with, and I mean, he has acknowledged her as a master before, but he's just never used this term. Whereas Toph, the whole reason she's with them is to teach him earthbending.
I figure he's also slightly scared of Toph.
Yeah. I mean, we'll definitely talk about that more in this episode. Toph paints herself as a rather intimidating figure. But I mean, what did you guys have any thoughts about this? Him using this term with Toph, but not with Katara? Or was it just like, it was a word? I don't know what the big deal is.
I mean, at my school, Sifu is a ranking. So,
okay.
But master is higher than Sifu.
Well, there you go then.
Yeah. I took it basically just to mean he's known Katara from the beginning as just like a peer and a friend.
Yeah.
Toph has explicitly come on here as a teacher, not at least as of yet as a friend. So
I think it's still just he's scared of her.
Yeah. I mean, the nature of their relationship is different.
Right. Well, and I also think that, because of that, because Toph really just has come along to teach him to be a master, I think that's where a lot of Toph's attitude, both in the last episode and this one, comes from. Because, obviously she's in a roundabout way there for the same reason that Katara and Sokka are, to help, to help Aang. But obviously Katara didn't sign on to teach him water bending, and obviously neither did Sokka. They were they're just as friends, whereas Toph sees this as, I'm doing you a favor.
Mm-hmm. That's
Type
kind
of
of
thing.
why I was like, I'm kind of team Toph here, because she literally threw away her life of luxury, despite the fact that, I mean,
in
had a
one hand, yes, but at the same time, it was also a very oppressive.
it was very impressive. She didn't
environment.
like it.
Yes. Yeah.
But she still threw everything away as
True.
a favor to Aang.
Yeah. Yeah. But at the same time, you know, when he masters earthbending, I'm not seeing her going home.
Mm-mm.
You know? So it's like, yeah, you kind of did us a favor, but we're also kind of doing you a favor by keeping you away from your oppressive parents.
Yeah. Based on how that episode ended, like, I assume we're going to see more of her, like, family at some point.
We'll see.
Yeah. But maybe not the parents directly, but
Sure.
I mean, like, I think they sit like bounty hunters after her or something
Yes,
like that.
yeah. I mean, we're definitely gonna catch up with
Yeah.
that.
That's what
eventually.
I mean. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, obviously, like I said, Aang is very eager, and he's, you know, the typical student thing. It's like, hey, am I going to learn all of this high level stuff right off the bat? And she's just like, no, let's start with push a rock. And I will say, I really enjoy kind of the training montage that we kind of see her put him through. You know, some really interesting, because at first he doesn't seem to be able to, you know, get any of it. He struggles for quite a bit with just the basic stuff, but as this training montage goes along, he's able to do more and more basic earth bending. I mean, he's still definitely in the basic earth bending stage, but he's able to do more and more of these little tasks that she is giving him. I will say at one point, there's a sequence where they're in like a canyon, and she has like drawn a line in front of herself, and then all of a sudden, like, puts her arms down, and all of these rocks go all over her. I call this picture Toph is the Thing, because that's basically what she looks like. She looks like the Marvel Comics Fantastic Four version of the Thing.
Yep.
You know, even less of a neck than the Thing has, but still, you know, and Aang, with her coming at him in this form, is eventually able to push her back. So he's obviously, you know, tapping into some basic earth bending. But we are seeing that Toph's form of teaching is much more confrontational, much more, you know, in your face, much more, you know, at one point, Katara is like, you know, he does well with positive reinforcement and all this kind of stuff, and, you know, maybe you can you know, be gentle and nice and things like that. Obviously, she doesn't know Toph very well, because I don't think Toph has that gear.
I don't think Toph understands the meaning of the word gentle at all.
No. And while I will say, you know, I am also a person that, you know, responds more to positive reinforcement. If you try to throw negative reinforcement at me, I'm just going to be like, okay, I don't want to be here then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's how I am.
I will say, I mean, she does have a habit of, you know, giving people nicknames and a little bit of name calling, not like Full Metal Jacket type of thing or anything like that. But Toph is a much more, you know, for lack of a better word, I know she's an earthbender, but a harder individual. She's a lot more, you know, straightforward. And honestly, like, on one point, I'm like, I don't know, because some people just do respond better to positive reinforcement, but I don't necessarily think I would call what she's doing negative reinforcement, rather just being straightforward. And honestly, because of what she is teaching, which is earthbending, I don't know that there are too many other ways, because obviously Aang as an airbender, and you can talk about this a little bit, Amanda, because airbending is all about, moving and evading. And, Aang is very much, it's kind of the opposite of what Boomy was doing. Whereas Boomy was trying to get him to think outside of the box. And, if something doesn't work one way, just find a different perspective, find a different way around it. Toph is saying, okay, that's great, but sometimes you just got to plow through it. And while I don't necessarily always agree with her methods for how she does that, I do see how with earthbending, maybe there aren't 5 million different ways to do it. Maybe there is just the one, and you kind of have to keep at it, even though it sucks and it's hard and it hurt. I mean, I have been doing, like I said, I got a new workout regimen. I would love to find a different way to get in shape. I really would. But unfortunately, I just have to set aside time every day and do these things that hurt.
Well, it's funny how Aang was saying, I need to find a new angle, because that is specifically what Bagua is all about, is
right.
Like cutting different angles. Like, so Bagua is like, it's a circle supported by two squares that are like kind of like a star kind of shape. And everything is all about like cutting different angles. Like geometric stepping is like a big thing of like figuring out where to step and why you need to step a certain way and all that.
Sure.
So it's just neat. It's like, no, that is exactly what he would be used to.
Right. Well, and I also think that this goes into helping Aang learn to think differently as well, because he is so adept at, let's just think of something else. Well, in this case, there is no other way. You have to do it this way. Can you adapt to that? And so in that, I find this very interesting. But I do want to get Lauren's take, because Lauren, you've been very upfront about how you do not appreciate the way that Toph approaches these things. So, and I know you talked a little bit about it in last episode, but I think it comes much more to the forefront in this episode. So like, what are your thoughts on this training that Toph is giving to Aang?
The last episode made me dislike Toph as a teammate, and this episode made me dislike Toph as a teacher. So she's become more well-rounded in the ways I dislike. More than anything, I haven't even seen the movie, but I've seen enough clips of it that more than anything, she reminded me of J.K. Simmons's jazz teacher in Whiplash.
There's a little bit of, I mean, obviously not to that level, but there's a little bit there. I will say she's much less abusive, but it's also a kid's show.
Yes, exactly.
But yeah, she's very confrontational, and won't take anything less than and will yell at him when she thinks that he's not giving his best.
Yeah, I mean, I grant you, she is less abusive than like the what pop culture knows as the most abusive teacher in pop culture. But she also has Katara over here to the side saying, like, this isn't what works for him. You need to do something different. And she doesn't. And finally just, like, destroys his spirit by the end of the episode. And only when, like, other circumstances arise that, like, force him to do something does he manage to regain any, confidence in himself. So I didn't feel like by the end of the episode she had really come around or learned anything from this. Maybe the next episode she'll feel differently, but at least within the context of this one, it's just like, nope, just still don't like her.
I will say, correct me if I'm wrong, Amanda. I think this is definitely the episode where we see the most of Toph's training methods. I think after this, we might just see like she gives him like a command of something to do. But I think this is the one where we go the most in depth into her training methods.
That would make sense. It's not scintillating television, to be honest, just to watch someone train in a fictional art. Yeah, it's that works for one episode. If we had multiple, like, it would get tiresome and repetitive.
Right. I mean, I will say, while I'm not necessarily a fan of her methods overall, I will say occasionally, and I think Aang is guilty of this, of just seeing, well, that's too hard.
Yep.
And just giving up. And occasionally it can help someone to jolt them and just be like, well, if you give up, that's not going to help you at all.
And it's really common for somebody especially like Aang, where airbending came so easily to him and waterbending came so easily to him. And so when somebody's used to things coming really easily to them and all of a sudden there's something they can't do, it's just, it's more devastating to them.
Yeah.
And again, it goes back to, it's a kid's show. So like this is done in montage form over the course of like one afternoon.
Right.
And
kudos, it seems, at least.
Kudos to Toph for completely destroying him in the span of one afternoon that he just wants to give up on it. But
I mean, I've had plenty of acting teachers do that to me.
Yeah.
I mean, but we say that, but he does eventually come around and is able to get what she's saying. Maybe it would have helped if she had altered her approach.
Yeah.
But again, the way she's coming off, and even she says it, rock is not an element that changes.
Yeah.
So it's not going to adapt to you. You have to adapt to it.
Yeah. I honestly wish the montage had been spaced over more than one day.
Sure.
That seems unusually rapid to get through the especially the number of different types of different things we show her practicing with him. So they must have spent like 10 minutes a piece on them. But clearly it takes place within one day because of Sokka's subplot. So
that's why it could only take place in one day, because Sokka could only be stuck in that hole for like a day.
Yeah. But I think that we've all expressed our position on this. So do we want to move forward to Sokka's subplot, or do we want to talk about Zuko's real quick?
Well, we just brought up Sokka's. Let's go with Sokka.
Okay. So during all of this going on, initially Sokka just wants to sleep through their training. Of course, Toph decides to rudely wake him up with some earthbending, just to mess with him, kind of thing. So eventually, the next time we see Sokka, he is basically on the prowl for food. And he picks his target in this tiny little creature, which he will eventually come to call Fufu Cuddly Poops, which that is the only name given to this creature, besides the fact that we find out later that it is a baby saber-toothed moose lion.
As a matter of fact, on the Avatar wiki online, there is a page. The name of the page is Fufu Cuddly Poops. That is Bradley Baker is listed as the voice of Fufu Cuddly Poops.
Fufu Cuddly Poops. Yes, exactly. But so Sokka sees this creature, and he even honestly, he has this kind of rather entertaining dialogue to himself, kind of with the creature in the tree, where he's like, you're real cute. Unfortunately for you, you're also made of meat. And he decides that he is going to eat this this creature, which, number one, this creature is obviously like a cub or a pup or a baby. So Sokka preying on it, automatically I'm not on Sokka's side. I'm like, I get you're hungry, dude, but don't go after babies. That's just wrong.
It's like veal. It's gonna be. It's a very soft, tender meat.
I'm sure, but yeah, just I mean, it's one thing to eat it when it's put on a plate in front of you. It's another thing to go yourself to kill that creature.
Especially when that cute.
Yeah.
But the cutest ones are the most delicious.
I can't bring myself to eat veal because I know what happens.
Yeah. But yeah, so Sokka decides to pounce on this creature and try to kill it so that he can eat it. But he somehow, and I will say we see it happen, and it still makes no sense. But he gets himself in a predicament, and like basically eventually he is just stuck in a hole. But like I said, how this happens is beyond me. We see him kind of jump down, and it looks like he just didn't realize that the place he was jumping down, there was a large crack in the earth. So he falls into this crack, and he at first is only waist deep. Well, then he goes to still attack the creature, and the earth swallows him up more, to the point where I'm like, we're going to find out at some point that there's an earthbender hiding somewhere. Because like it really does seem like the earth is actively swallowing him up.
Maybe when Aang was trying to learn earthbending, he ended up accidentally doing that.
That's honestly what I thought was happening. I thought these were
really?
just like the unintentional side effects of what was happening with the training.
My only thing with that is that it only happens those 2 times. And he's doing a lot of training.
Oh yeah.
So,
no, I'm not saying it's consistent.
No.
I'm just saying that's the plot device that's making it happen.
Yeah, we also see them nowhere. Like they don't know what has happened to Sokka until they go look until later on.
Yeah.
So I mean, I can see that as an explanation, but I also don't think it makes any sense.
Oh, I never thought it made sense.
No, I kept expecting like, oh, there's an earthbender hiding somewhere. Well, we never saw that. So my thesis now is that area of Earth is sentient, and it's a big fan of Fufu Cuddly Poops.
Looking back at the episode, for some reason, I had thought like the ground opened up, but no, you can just barely see the crack when he's looking down at Fufu Cuddly Poops.
You can, and you can see that he does jump into it.
Yeah.
Which, again, I'm like, wow, Sokka, you're really not paying attention if you don't see that. But okay, that I'm like, okay, I can. It's how the ground swallows him up to his hands and then to his shoulders that I'm like, okay, this ground is acting on its own accord.
Yeah.
Because it really makes no sense.
Maybe what they're going for is kind of like a quicksand type thing where they're like not exactly.
I'm wondering that too, but maybe it's like fast drying quicksand.
Where it is like by struggling, he's just making it worse. You know,
right.
By struggling, he's loosened some stuff up and like caused himself to sink further.
The only thing though is like the top, like it's literally hard.
Yeah,
like, you can get out of quicksand by like squiggling out.
Yeah.
Well, I will say, guys, at this point, I know exactly what it is. It's story sand.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's exactly what this is. It is sand that will, or earth that will swallow you up based on the story that needs to be told.
Yeah.
Checks out.
But now I'm disappointed. I actually kind of, in a little way, I kind of liked the notion that he was just being made to suffer by the trading that was going poorly over there. But
I mean, if more had happened, I could go with that notion.
No, I agree with you now. Like looking back at the clips, it doesn't look like that's what happened. So
so he is stuck up to his shoulders and neck, and I will say, we get some entertaining. Like Sokka, poor Sokka, man. The worst things happen to Sokka. He has like the worst luck, but at the same time, it happens to Sokka because he's the most entertaining in these horrible situations. Because he starts, making pacts where, as you drew attention to, Lauren, he starts promising that he'll be a vegan and all this kind of stuff if he can just get out of this situation. But yes, he is
He'll
stuck.
stop meat and sarcasm.
Yeah, yes. He's like, and sarcasm. That's basically my whole personality. I'm the guy who eats meat and is sarcastic. I got nothing else. Which I thought that was very humorous. But yes, eventually Aang's story kind of collides with Sokka's subplot, and Aang points out the fact that Fufu Cuddly Poops is actually a saber-toothed moose lion cub, and that is when we are confronted by Mama, who is not pleased at all that these two are holding her baby. I think she'd be even less pleased if she knew Sokka's original plan. But yeah, not in a good mood, and so Aang is able to kind of draw her away or make her leave eventually by standing his ground. Now, I will say I would have felt it was a little more connected to the story with Toph if he had used a little bit of earth bending to help, but it's all air bending that he uses here. But the main idea, because the last thing that Toph asks him to do is she rolls down a boulder at him, and he's supposed to stand his ground and push the boulder away. Well, he gets scared, understandably, and doesn't want to hold his ground. So the whole way out of this saber-toothed moose lion thing is that he has to stand his ground and push it away. So he ends up learning the same lesson. Like I said, I think it would have made more sense if there had been a little earthbending involved, but maybe then that would have also caused some issues with Sokka being stuck in the earth. Who knows? But either way, he does stand his ground, at which point Toph reveals that she's seen the whole thing and she's just been watching to see what he does. And it gives him the confidence to, then push some boulders, and he's just like, yay, I can move rocks now. He goes to help Sokka, but Toph's just like, actually, let me do that because you might crush him. Yes, Aang knows some basic earth bending, and Sokka is not crushed. That is pretty much how that storyline goes down. But I do want to go ahead and quickly discuss the Zuko storyline, because last we saw Zuko and Iroh at the end of the last episode. Iroh had been attacked by Azula, and Zuko is now nursing him back to health. I will say, I do wonder if, at least in their storyline, like a couple of days have passed, because aside from being bandaged up, Iroh seems to recover pretty quickly. So I imagine at least a day or two has passed for them between the last story and this one. But Zuko makes Iroh some tea, which Amanda brought up. How do you mess up? I'm also wondering, your uncle is Iroh. How do you not know how to make tea, Zuko?
Maybe
but
maybe Iroh just did it all the time. That
Yeah,
Zuko
Iroh just always makes the tea. Yeah.
yeah.
well, he always makes the tea, but also Zuko has to this point shown no interest in tea. He actually actively rebels against Zuko's tea making ways. So maybe that is but yeah, again, it's just water and leaves. What's to mess up? But
I mean, if you don't do the right amount, but
or maybe he burned the leaves or something, because
whatever
it is, it seems
it could be super weak. It could be unnecessarily strong.
The way that Iroh reacts, I think it's strong.
I think it's strong.
I think
he calls it bracing.
Yeah.
My guess is he burnt the leaves because depending on the kind of tea, because I freaking love tea. Depending on the kind of tea, like certain ones are supposed to be heated at certain temperatures. Like green tea is supposed to be like a lot lower than like a black tea. I usually end up doing it at the regular black tea temperature, and I just don't really care. But when I do it correctly, it's much better.
Sure.
And so my guess is he burnt it and he steeped it for too long.
Yeah,
sure. Well, and I'm also thinking, Iroh is a tea connoisseur as true. Well. So I think that his palate is much more sensitive to bad tea.
Yeah.
But either way, we see Iroh throw his tea away where Zuko can't see. Obviously.
That was I did love the comic timing of that. Yeah, that was a nicely understated bit of comedy for this show.
But we also see Zuko with the tea. Now, do we ever actually see Zuko drink the tea?
I think so.
Because in which case he obviously didn't fuck it up enough that he's just like, ah. Of course, again, he does not.
He probably doesn't know what good tea tastes like.
Yeah.
I mean, he does. He just doesn't really care.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So maybe it's just, the difference in refinement of palate that we're running into there. But yeah, so he has made this tea and he starts, talking to his uncle. I will say at no point do we bring up the fact that, you ran away from your uncle saying that, you didn't need to, and now all of a sudden you're no apology or anything like that. No, just going to leave that alone. But they do, Zuko is just like, I think that I need some better training because, I might have to fight Azula. And I love this moment because Zuko's like, I know what you're going to say. She's my sister. I should try to get along with her. And Iroh shoots back with this.
No, she's crazy and she needs to go down.
Yeah, because Iroh understands, no, this is not a typical brother-sister thing. She's a crazy person.
For Iroh to call you crazy, there's something seriously wrong with you.
Yeah, I don't think that that's a term that he just throws around. So Iroh is totally down for teaching Zuko some new techniques. And so, obviously Azula shot Iroh with lightning. So he starts teaching Zuko the technique for summoning lightning. Unfortunately, and Iroh eventually tells Zuko the issue. Zuko is not able to effectively summon lightning because of the inner turmoil that he is dealing with, because, we're going to get more and more into it, but we're going to, we've already seen a little bit in flashbacks that Zuko at his core is a decent, caring person, but he has been forced and asked and trained to do these really dark, villainous things. And, that he's at conflict within himself. And I'm sure that is a journey that Iroh himself had to go on. And so he recognizes that within Zuko. and just realizes that Zuko's too blocked up. He's not going to be able to summon lightning, but something else that he can teach him, and I think honestly, it is also based on the way that he teaches it, a first step in his attempt to kind of help Zuko work through this issue that he has.
Can we just point out, though, the fact that this means Azula has zero problem with how awful of a person she is. She has
100%,
zero inner turmoil.
Nope. She is, she has made her choice. And I will say, I think if this had happened before Zuko's maybe even before the whole issue with the at the northern water tribe, Zuko might have felt a little less conflicted, but now that he's kind of on the run from the Fire Nation and he's starting to second guess the way the Fire Nation does things, because he's like, oh, I was always taught that the Fire Nation was right and the Fire Nation takes care of us, but they're coming after me for just because.
And he's also seen like people who have been directly affected by the Fire Nation, like
exactly,
like the girl that he stole the ostrich horse from.
Yeah, he's starting to see the other nations as people rather than just nations to be conquered, and so he's having a little conflict. But like I said, part of of Iroh helping him through this conflict, he teaches him basically not how to create lightning, but how to deflect it, which is a technique that he developed based on water bending. So he basically gives him this whole speech and lesson about how the nations are dependent on each other and that they none of them are better than the others. And obviously Zuko is just like he knocks up a bit against it a little bit, but he's also listening to his uncle and shows him kind of the technique, and is Zuko's just like going through the steps and he's just like, oh, okay, all right, well, I'm ready to practice it now. And Iroh's like, yeah, I wanted to teach you the technique, but we're not going to actually do it. I'm not going to shoot lightning at you. And, Zuko is, because Zuko is nothing if not hard-headed. He is determined to prove himself. And so he's like, well, fine. If you're not going to shoot lightning at me, then I'm going to find my own, and goes out into a lightning storm. And I will say, I believe it's the final scene of the episode, right?
Mm-hmm.
We just see Zuko on top of a mountain shouting at the sky. Basically, just kind of letting all of his frustration out, saying, you need to help me. You need to shoot lightning at me so that I can, master this technique. You've never held back before. My life has sucked. Everything's always been hard for me. And he's just, this kid shouting out his frustration at the sky. And it's sad, but also a perfect encapsulation of who Zuko as a character is right now. He's just this broken figure that is unwilling to give up but at the same time is asking for something that could destroy him. And it's just like I think it's a great scene.
It's a very powerful moment.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that is basically the episode. Is there anything that we have missed that you guys wanted to talk about? Scenes, lines, any ideas?
Trying to think. I just really enjoyed when Iroh was explaining how the chi worked and everything. I thought that was really interesting. I mean, because there's a million different like the yin and yang and positive and negative. I mean, it's essentially just electrons and protons. It's just really interesting when you learn the Eastern version of medicine and things like that, and then compare it to Western. It's like, oh wait,
similar concepts, just understood in a completely different
way. Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's you always think, oh, Eastern, oh, that's that weird creepy, not creepy, just weird new agey stuff. It's no, it's the same thing, just worded
well. And what's fascinating is that they came up with those concepts, centuries before anybody in the Western world was able to figure out, things like you said, like protons and electrons and things like that. So, yeah, fascinating stuff. Anything else, or are we good to move on?
I think we're pretty good to move on.
Good.
All right. All right. Well, then it is time to go ahead and discuss our My Cabbages moment.
My cabbages!
Which is, of course, the part of the episode where we discuss our favorite or most interesting scene for the episode. So, Amanda, we are going to start with you. What is your My Cabbages moment?
Well, I totally just spoiled it, but the training sequence with Iroh and Zuko, I thought that was really a cool scene.
Yeah, I mean, like we said, it's. I love how he is trying to, number one, teach him a new technique, but he's also working in his own philosophy in there, because he's just I learned this from the Water Tribe. So all of this stuff that we have heard, all of this Fire Nation propaganda about how the Fire Nation's better than anybody else, it's kind of bullshit. He doesn't come out and say that, but he's kind of, he's slowly layering that idea in about, all the nations, we kind of all need each other kind of thing.
What's really interesting about that scene, though, is how you would think that Zuko would to have the Toph type character, and that would be the effective teaching for him. But he gets Iroh, who you would think would be the best type of teacher for Aang. So it's kind of flipped. So you get the hothead teaching Aang, and then you've got the cool one teaching the hothead.
But again, what I do like about that is that
I think it's great. I just think it's interesting just to contrast.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Both of them need to learn different ways of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And so I find that actually pretty interesting. But Lauren, what is your My Cabbages moment?
I was tempted to say the comic beat where Iroh throws out his tea earlier. But honestly, one of the things that made me just laugh out loud, one was, Sokka saying, that unfortunately you're made of meat.
Yeah.
But it's a similar enough to a line I've heard before, but I like it. More so than that, I will give it specifically to the moment when he manages to get the boomerang out from behind under himself and tosses it up 8 inches ahead of him, and then just calls for the boomerang to return. Yes.
Yes, because we didn't mention Fufu Cuddly Poops has brought him an apple to eat. But
I mean, how nice of Fufu Cuddly Poops was that? I mean, Sokka was like, I'm gonna eat you, and he's like, no, Here, have an apple instead.
Yeah. Mhm. Of course, he doesn't put it close enough for Sokka to grab it or anything.
Well, he
But
can't
yeah,
help
yeah, no, yeah. Honestly, my favorite scene is that last scene we talked about with Zuko, screaming at the sky. I just thought, I said before, it is a perfect encapsulation of the character of Zuko at this moment. So conflicted, so frustrated, so just uh, it's I can't think of the line, but the um screaming at the dying of the light, or whatever that phrase is. The just he refuses to surrender, even when sometimes maybe he should. It just, yeah, it's honestly, like we said, kind of the opposite of Aang. Whereas, Aang needs to learn not to give up and to stand his ground, whereas Zuko needs to almost learn the opposite. It's like, okay, this defiance and headstrongness has gotten you pretty far, but sometimes you also need to learn when to let something go, you know? Yeah, very, very interesting stuff. So let us go ahead and let us discuss the Mako Award, which is the award that we give to our favorite or most interesting character. So, Lauren, you're going to start us off with this one. Who gets your Mako Award?
I'm slightly sad we won't be seeing more Fufu Cuddly Poofs. That was a cute design.
Yeah.
Granted, I don't know that we won't be seeing more saber-toothed moose flying. So if we see other baby saber-toothed moose flying that are not Fufu Cuddly Poofs, that'll scratch that itch. But
okay. I mean, you could always just keep a picture in your wallet.
Or you can get a plushie.
Commission some fan art. Oh, you get a plushie of a baby. Oh,
I'm sure you can get a fan made one if nothing else.
No, there's an official one too.
Official one? Oh, okay.
Yeah, the only problem is it comes in a blind box, so you may or may not end up with him.
Oh, that's not fun.
I don't like.
I'm sure you can commission somebody on Etsy.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm sure you can.
Yeah. But all right, Amanda, who gets your Mako Award?
Well, I too will be awarding Fufu Cuddly Poops.
Okay.
Very thoughtful, very cute.
Yeah, these past two episodes, you two seem to be really in sync, whereas I seem to be the one off on my own. You guys are, acknowledging the fun and cuddly things, and I am like, no, the dark, brooding guy. That's the guy we need to be talking about right now, because I'm giving it to Zuko. That last scene to me was just so sad and tragic, and I'm just like, man, Zuko, you need to make a change here, buddy. Something's got to move here. Just really, really interesting moment for his character. So I'm going with Zuko. All right. Well, then it is time to rate the episode on the Avatar State Meter. We can rate it anywhere from 1 to 5, 5 being the best, the show at full power, 1 being the worst, could deal the show a fatal blow. Amanda, what is your rating for this episode?
I think I'll give it a 3.5. It's not like my favorite, but it does have some really powerful moments, which is what's given it the 0.5 on there.
Yeah. All right. Lauren.
Amanda and I will be a little closer than we were last week. I am going to come in at a 2.5. It's proven over. Well, I mean, here's the thing: is I like some of the comic relief of Sokka's. I don't even want to call it a subplot. It's barely that. It's just it's a bit that's playing in the background.
Yeah.
And it's a solid enough bit. And I do like Zuko and Iroh's subplot, which is a legit subplot. But no, I have enough issues with the main thrust of this episode that docks it a lot.
All right. I am going to actually line right up with Amanda. I'm going to call this also a 3.5. I think that it is a good, decent episode. Like I said, some really interesting, character stuff happening with both Zuko and Aang. We're getting to see a little bit more of the dynamic with Toph in the group now, and just that crazy young man screaming at the sky scene at the end. It really just kind of like I said, my favorite bit of the episode. But 3.5 works for me. So now it is time to let people know how they can get into contact with us. So you can contact us at the Flying Cow Pod on Twitter and Instagram. You can email at theflyingcowpod@gmail.com. Make sure to check out everything we've got coming up. Got a lot of great stuff. I hope you guys are listening to the re-releases of Around the World, where Lauren and I talked about all of the Ernest movies. I believe the most recent one, I'm trying to remember when this episode itself will be released, but I know in the month of April, we released the episode about Ernest Goes to School. And then I think the one after that is Slam Dunk Ernest. So some lesser known Ernest films, we will say, but still interesting conversations to at least. And then also remember to check out the patreon.com/theflyingcow. Great stuff over there. Amanda, what you got going on?
You can find me on YouTube on Zelda Universe TV. You can also find me on Twitch at Panda Princessa. And I'm on socials at Amanda Van Heil.
All right, Lauren.
I'm on Twitter at Lauren Collins. And don't have any shows immediately coming up, at least not after this goes live. But as I mentioned before, I'm producing an all-lawyer musical in November. If you're in the Atlanta area, you can learn more at bardshow.com.
All right. So there you have it. We will be back next time discussing the episode The Library. Interesting stuff about to happen in the show. But of course, until that time, moo.
Mm.